Deceptive arguments, known as logical fallacies, are incredibly common in our daily lives, yet many of us can't spot them and remain unaware of the damage they cause. Here are 9 types of damaging logical fallacies and how to recognize them. Number 1. The false cause fallacy, also known as the correlation-causation fallacy, occurs when we assume that just because 2 things happen at the same time, one caused the other. For example, let's say I drank coffee today and you got promoted. The weirdest thing is that for the next 2 months, every time I drink coffee, someone is getting a promotion. Luckily, in this scenario, it's pretty clear that my coffee consumption isn't causing job promotions. In reality, many things happen simultaneously, making it possible to argue that almost any correlation implies causation. For instance, there's a correlation between U.S. bank failures and master's degrees awarded in education. Similarly, there's a correlation between the divorce rate in Maine and per capita margarine consumption. While it might seem easy to spot this fallacy, in practice it can be tricky, especially when trying to show a connection between 2 data points to support your argument. For example, saying, "Last week our website had more visitors. We also changed the font. I think the new font is why we got more views." Number 2, ad hominem fallacy. This fallacy occurs when you attack someone personally instead of addressing their argument, targeting aspects like their looks, intelligence, or reputation. It's a trick to shift focus away from the real issue by discussing the person's character or motives. Kids use ad hominem a lot. Remember those arguments as a kid when you couldn't defend yourself, so you just said, "Well, you're stupid," and walked away? It's like avoiding the real problem. We see this fallacy a lot in political debates. Instead of discussing a rival's policies, people spread rumors about their personal life. It is also very common in the workplace. For example, when Anna suggests reviewing the data, Dan responds, "I knew you'd say that since you're not so good with numbers." Another example is disregarding a team member's input by saying, "I'm not convinced. You're relatively new here. Maybe you don't have the experience to fully grasp the situation." Number 3, the straw man fallacy. This fallacy happens when instead of discussing a point fairly, we create a weaker version of it to make it easier to criticize. It's called a straw man because it's like using a straw dummy instead of a real person to attack the argument more easily. For example, if a father tells his daughter she can't go to a party because she has homework to do, and the daughter says he doesn't want her to have fun at all. At work, we often encounter more subtle versions of the straw man argument. For example, a tech team manager talks about the need for timely project deliveries. One employee, who is also a parent, feels targeted, saying the company isn't supportive of working parents. In another case, a law firm proposes a 3% pay raise due to budget constraints. Some lawyers ask for a 5% raise, and the manager accuses them of only caring about money, not the firm's financial stability. Number 4, the slippery slope fallacy. This fallacy, also known as the domino fallacy, claims that if one thing happens, it will set off a chain of extreme bad events. However, it doesn't provide any evidence or proof for that claim. It is often used to create fear and discourage people from taking certain actions. For example, thinking that if you don't get accepted to a good college, then you will not find a job and make a living. In other words, not being accepted to a good college will ruin your life. Advertisers use the slippery slope fallacy to make us feel we have to buy their product. For instance, in toothpaste ads, they might say, "If you don't use this toothpaste, you'll get cavities and might lose all your teeth." In business organizations, someone might say, "If we allow employees to work from home 1 day a week, soon everyone will want to work remotely all the time, and our office culture will collapse." Number 5, the red herring fallacy. This occurs when an argument seems related to the topic but is actually a distraction. It's like throwing something off topic into the conversation to shift attention away from the main point. Imagine you're talking about the cost of a house with a seller and suddenly they bring up the fantastic neighborhood and beautiful parks around. It's like they're adding distracting details to avoid the real topic. At work, red herrings are very common. Imagine a company struggling financially, and the CEO talks about potential job cuts. Instead of focusing on solutions, the CEO says, "We're in a tough financial spot, and jobs will be lost. But remember the great team-building event last year? More are coming soon." Another example is a sales representative failing to secure a crucial client deal. Instead of admitting failure, he shifts focus, claiming the client preferred another company from the start, making the deal bound to fail. Number 6, the false dichotomy fallacy. This fallacy happens when a situation is wrongly shown as having only 2 sides, creating a black and white thinking. It's a manipulation used to make the other side look extreme to support the person talking. You might have heard politicians say, "You're either with us or against us," trying to make everyone take sides. But you could be neutral or partly with them, partly against them or against everyone. Similarly, in a debate, someone can say, "You either support total free speech or you're against democracy." At work, a manager might say, "You either meet the strict deadline or you don't care about your job." False dichotomies also happen when we judge ourselves, like saying, "I have to work harder," or "I'm a total failure," or "If I'm not a millionaire, then I'm a loser." Number 7, the bandwagon fallacy. This fallacy happens when a person believes something just because it is a popular opinion, but there is no evidence to support their belief. For example, people use this kind of argument when saying things like, "Everyone is going," or "It's popular right now." A good example is when picking a new book at the store. We might choose the one that is the bestseller of the year, ignoring our personal preferences. Our decision can be influenced by the belief that if many people bought this book, we would like it. At organizations, this fallacy can cause problems. For example, a company invests in a particular technology because it's the most talked about trend in the industry, rather than assessing whether it addresses the company's specific needs. Number 8, the appeal to authority fallacy. This fallacy happens when people blindly trust an expert's opinion. For instance, following a doctor's advice without questioning it. Advertisers often use this tactic. For example, an ad claims a toothpaste is recommended by 9 out of 10 dentists, appealing to anonymous authority without concrete evidence. It relies on people's trust in dentists to sell the product. Seeking support from an authority figure is fine, but relying too much on their opinion, especially outside their expertise, can be risky. For instance, if you're buying a house and ask your friend, a tax lawyer, for advice, and he says, "Trust me, I'm a lawyer." Believing him solely based on his title is an appeal to authority fallacy. His expertise in taxes doesn't necessarily make him an expert in property matters. At work, respecting authority is common, but it doesn't guarantee everything they say is true. For instance, if our CEO insists on sticking to the same strategy despite lower numbers in Q4, it might not be the best move. Similarly, hiring a candidate based solely on a senior executive's recommendation without evaluating their skills can be a mistake. Number 9, the anecdotal evidence fallacy. This fallacy occurs when people base their arguments on personal experiences instead of solid facts. The issue is that advice from such stories may not apply to everyone. For instance, someone suggesting, "I study with music and get good grades. You should try it too." Or, "My cousin invested all his money in one stock and got rich. You should do the same." In a work scenario, like when selecting a project management tool, a teammate might say, "I know the perfect one, used it in my last job, and it worked amazingly," without considering other options based on the company's current needs.